And this meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the Biddulph Town Council YouTube page. The aim is that decision making should be transparent and in the public domain, which will involve more of our community and local democracy. By being in this council chamber, you are consenting to being recorded and for your image to be added to YouTube. The images and sound may be used for training purposes. Any views expressed are the speaker's own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Biddulph Town Council. Please view the guidance on recording in public meetings policy if you need more information. This is the Recreation and Amenities Committee on Tuesday, 12th of September.
Thank you very much, Chief Officer. Right, thank you. Apologies, are they the same as before?
They are indeed.
Yes, Councillor Rogers has had to go to see his father.
Yeah.
And he has left early, but he wanted to stay because he thought the agenda was going to be very interesting. Declarations of interest. Are there any, please? Disposal of pecuniary interests? No. Any ordinary other interests? No. Councillor Salt. Councillor Salt.
Did try and put my hand up when you were going through apologies. Can you register me as attending? Because I don't think I've signed the sheet to say I'm attending this committee.
Right.
On this committee. Thank you.
Well, thank you for staying to listen. Right. Minutes. To approve and sign the minutes of the Recreation and Amenities meeting held on the 11th of July. May I do that, please? Thank you. Second. Thank you. I'll do it now. Have a pen. There we are. That's good. To receive the notes from the Transport Working Group meeting held on the 19th of July. Chief Officer. Yes, if you could, please. Do we have a proposer for the Transport Working Group? Councillor Lawton, do you want to propose? Seconder? Mr. Mayor. You weren't there, Mr. Mayor.
Actually, I think we'll stick with that. Actually,
Councillor Rogers isn't here.
Okay. These will be presented for the Transport Working Group meeting, which the next one is tomorrow. So on the notes there, they were present. 1 was declaration of interest. 2 apologies. 3 the notes from the previous meeting. 4 to receive an update on ridership data, the 93 bus. 5 is to consider a request from a Brownlees resident in relation to bus provision. 6 is to consider action plan progress, and 7 to discuss traffic issues within the town and a coordinated approach to dealing with these. Number 8 was to agree a date for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Are you happy with that? Councillor Jackson?
On the Amy project, are we thinking along the lines that that project should possibly go to a shared prosperity bid? Or because from what the costs are likely to be, it seems it's going to be probably a stretch for the town council to fund it fully on our own. Otherwise, I can't think it's going to go anywhere unless, you know, we try and pull in some extra funding from elsewhere.
Chief Officer.
I think at the moment that's the only pot of funding, isn't it? So I think we need to get to a point where, at the moment, I don't see any of the pots that have currently opened up shared prosperity potentially fitting that, or at least, you know, we have other options that we would prefer, I think. So my hope is that we can, you know, finish working up the project and then it will then fit with other pots of money that come up potentially, but I think it will have to be grant funded.
We've got some indicative figures, haven't we, already?
Yeah.
So perhaps that's a piece of work that needs doing. Or probably needs the authority of the town council. Well, I think we've got the authority actually to probably just bang the bid in.
I think-
Council, I know,
Yeah.
it's simplistic, but
I think
We have.
If I may, can I bring you an update on the Amy work to the next one of these meetings in October? Is that, because I
Are
think
you happy
probably
with
there'll
that?
be some there'll be some aspects of that newer councillors perhaps.
Okay, thank you.
Could Sarah please clarify what the Amy project involves for us?
Thank you,
Yeah.
Carcassie. Yeah,
That's what I was just thinking. I think you probably need one of my
Yeah.
PowerPoint presentations on what it is. The idea was that we look at the flows of traffic within the town centre, the management of public transport,
yes,
potentially looking at some pedestrianised areas, albeit we could consider different phases of that work. So I will, if that's all right with you, Chair.
Yeah.
I'll bring an update to the next meeting and then we can look to pursue funding that way.
thank you. Councillor Jackson, Councillor Kasika, are you happy with that?
yes, fine, thank you.
Thank you, that's good. Right, moving on. Can we do item 22, which is to receive a presentation on the burial data 22-23? Tantalising. Before we go into that agenda item, Holsworth has an item on the agenda. Have I your permission to move it up to the next agenda item, please?
Yeah.
Are you happy with that?
Yes,
Seconded? All those in favour? Thank you. Everybody's happy with that. So we'll move you up, councillor Holsworth, to the next agenda item after this one's been discussed.
Who proposed that? Councillor Jackson?
No, it was councillor Harper and then councillor Jackson, I think.
You want to do burials now?
Okay.
You want to do burial data now?
Yeah, we'll do the burial data now, please.
Okay, thank you. So you've got some quite simplistic information in front of you. Obviously, the information that we hold with regards to who has been buried across our sites, where they've been buried, the fees they paid, their ages, all that sort of thing is available to us. Obviously, we're happy to put more data together if that's of interest to you. Obviously, we think about who goes where here and the types of burials that we are completing. So you've got 3 years worth of data here. Obviously, we haven't got the whole of 2023 yet, so you've got 3 full years here. You can see from that data that the number of burials across both of ours is increasing. So 2020 there were 82, 21 95, 22 97. I was surprised to see the figures for actual burials, as in full burial plots with coffins, has seemingly increased. And I think probably I assumed there were more cremated remains burials, but that doesn't play out in these figures. Figures are fairly consistent there. Obviously, most of the actual burials now are taking place at the Woodhouse burial ground, where there are new graves dug. At the town burial ground side, it's only those that are reserved graves. So those people who reserved them in kind of I think it was about 1996, 97, something like that. There was a brief 18-month window where the town council took reservation fees for people at a reserved grave. So those are the only graves that are dug now at the town burial ground, apart from cremated remains plots.
Before I bring in 2 speakers, are there any conclusions that you've come to? Anything striking?
The only conclusion I've got is that there is very little way of predicting what will happen.
Unpredictability.
Which I suppose is good, really. You know, you find some months, we've had hardly any burials throughout the summer. You know, maybe one a week, one every 10 days. Like that. There are times of the year where we can have 2 a day. It's just there's no way of planning that in terms of a kind of workload.
Right. Right, okay. Councillor Salt.
So based on an average, so my maths is not fantastic, but let's say 90 burials, how long will that burial ground survive?
Good question.
Well, it's more, yeah, and it's more complicated than that, because then, so there's 90, but there's only, for example, in the 2022, 59 actual burials of coffins.
Yeah.
So we'd have to work out whether all of those were at Woodhouse or how many of those were Woodhouse, and then whether that figure was increasing. And if so, if we say it's 50 at Woodhouse, then we'll have to count the potential number of plots because there aren't plinths across the whole site.
So can I?
Want to come back?
Yeah, can I propose, Chair? I can't propose. But
You can't,
could
second, you
propose. Yeah.
You can leave it to Councillor Garvey.
Can we ask this committee to ask our officers to complete that piece of work, because strategically, we as a town council need to be ascertaining how long that burial ground's going to last, and we need to think about looking for a new piece of land. So, I mean, I know it's going to be rough ballparks, but it's, in my opinion, it's definitely a piece of work that this town council needs to do. But I can't propose that because I'm not on the committee, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Garvey and then Councillor Redfern.
Thank you, Chair. Do I need to stand up? I don't, do I?
No, you don't.
I think so. Right, okay. Yeah, Councillor Salt's raised exactly the question I was going to raise in terms of looking at the longer term trends. I think we've got 3 years worth of data here, which is the degree of scatter is probably inconclusive on that, but it would be useful to look back over a longer period of time to see if there is any significant trend in terms of increasing burials, focusing on the burials because that's the issue that we have. Looking at the figures through the year, there's no clear patterns from that either. So I would propose that we ask the Chief Officer to provide to do a bit more digging into the data to provide some details of trends and an estimate of what the projected consumption of the current available land would be for burials, in order that we can, as Councillor Salt said, give ourselves an indication of the timeline we've got for finding new available burial plots, burial land.
Thank you.
Can I second that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, you can. Councillor Redfern.
Yeah, is it still the practice that you can have multiple burials in the one plot? So that makes that calculation even more difficult.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
You have to then start to some type of random.
Yeah, if it was simple, then anyone could do it. We're obviously the Chief Officer can deconvolute the data.
This is either a crystal ball moment or a tea leaves moment, but whatever we do, it's only going to be a rough assessment.
It will give us an
It will be, but
It'll give us an idea. We might be a year or two out. But I remember looking for the new burial ground at Woodhouse. You know, how long did that? It started in 96, didn't it?
10 years then, was it?
96.
20 years? I don't know.
It
When
took-
did
it took
first start
about-
to buy?
Yeah,
Adams, wasn't it?
Harold Adams. And I think actually it was before that time, it was in George Brown's time.
Right.
We're going way, way back.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a minute about 1995 where Garside and Sons were invited to a meeting and they were busy pointing out that we're running out of space. So it takes a long time to find a piece of land. And when you do, the district valuer's office used to work on the principle that it costs between 2 and 2.5 times agricultural price. So as agricultural price throughout the country is about £10,000 an acre, and it's a lot more around here. It's a big capital expenditure. Do I have any further speakers, please? Councillor Lawton?
With regard to trying to estimate the rate at which unused plots will be taken, could an approach not be to look at the headstones on the plots in Woodhouse and within a given time frame, count them up? You know how many vacant spaces there are. You could work out how many have been taken within, say, a 5-year period at Woodhouse, because they tend to be filled fairly chronologically, do they not? So I would suggest that might be a way to arrive at the
Officer.
Well, yeah, I think we could filter the data for new burials in a new plot rather than a reopen. So we can probably do something with that. As long as you're happy that it won't be a precise figure.
Yeah.
You know, there's a massive caveat on that.
There will be.
And you know, as I said right at the start, we don't have plinths on the existing, but you know, on other areas at Woodhouse, so we'd have to do a calculation based on the space and what we think would be the lengths of the plinths and all that sort of stuff. So we can look at that though. It's possible.
It's
but
a
it won't-
ballpark,
absolutely won't be.
Yeah, like I said previously, we might be 3 or 4 or 5 years out.
Well,
Councillor-
if I might, sorry,
Yeah.
I was just going to say, just on another point as well, we have already got a sum of money allocated in earmarked reserves for the purchase of alternative burial land, because I think if we see something now, we should buy it. Even if we just sit on it and rent it,
Absolutely agree.
we should be buying it now.
As the chair, I've discussed this a couple of times with the chief officer and agree with her synopsis of what we need to be doing. I'm fully in agreement with it. I'm glad to see that members of the committee are also of a similar mind. This has been opportune to bring this data forward, and it's highlighted our possibility that we will need new burial land. So it's really sort of now out in the open to some extent. Oh, Councillor Salt, you want to come back?
With that in mind, have we contacted local estate agents to ask them to notify us if suitable plots of land become available? Because it's all right saying that we've got our eyes open, but potentially our officers are so busy that they might not have eyes on plots of land and fields that might come up. So is there an estate agent that we can instruct to keep an eye on things for us, perhaps in the town?
We've already, it's very difficult because the agricultural agents aren't really based in town. They tend to be off somewhere else. So generally, that's difficult to do. And also, it also highlights you're putting up a big light that says we're interested, where perhaps we need a little bit of time to assess things. Councillor Smith, you want to come in?
It was just to tie in with discussions that we've had on other committees, that where if we want to look at sort of mitigating running out of burial space, that we look at different options for people to do more, you know, to commemorate family members and different things like the forest that we were talking about, and being able to plant trees. And
Yeah.
you know, as part of that, you know, people are very sort of set in the very traditional manner of burial. There's a lot more people going for cremations now, but in other parts of the country, these rural forests and memory gardens and things like that are quite prevalent. So it's something that we do need to explore further.
Thank you for that. The chief officer keeps an eye out for the different trends as they come up. Do I have further speakers? Councillor Jackson.
Not to make a complicated mathematical problem even more complicated, we'll have to deduct off somewhere of that land that's going to go for memorials and cremation. Because that I would say that is probably the more immediate thing that we need to get sorted out, where that memorial garden is going to go, because we're running out of space in the old one.
Yeah, you've hit that one well and truly. That's necessary. We have discussed it previously. You know, we've got ideas in mind where that memorial garden will go. So that obviously takes off the burial land somewhat. Do I have any further speakers on that matter? No? Are you all done? Okay. So we've noted that data. I'm going to say, are you happy for the chief office to do that work? I've got a proposer and a seconder. All those in favour, Thank you. So that work will be done by Chief Officer. And Councillor Holsworth, would you like to come and sit in, please? You can sit in anyway. You don't need to stand. You're all right.
Right, I spoke to you before about possibility of public toilet at Halls Road playing fields. I still think that's feasible to use the existing disabled toilet as a multi-use toilet, because that's quite common anyway. It needs something to do with the locking arrangements, needs something to do with timing arrangements. But I would have thought at least something could be done for the busiest times of weekends. I'll leave that with you. Moving on. Had discussions with Nikki, the manager at the leisure centre, and Jim, who does the maintenance. And we've all had discussions with members of the public and had feedback from them. There is a possibility that, well, it's not a possibility. The leisure centre has all the equipment to provide Halls Road playing fields with a cafe. The equipment is all sat doing nothing at the leisure centre. Jim, who does the maintenance, is more than happy to install and do the alterations necessary to one of the changing rooms. How that would work, I don't know, but that's the whole idea. Seems very popular. That there could be a cafe there, maybe just for weekends. I really don't know, but the equipment is there. The staff are keen to do it. They obviously need permission to do it. Can't see that it would cost that much to do. That's basically a simple update. But if we could do a cafe at the weekend, there would automatically be another disabled toilet available for people to use. So that could give us 2 toilets at the weekend, because it's a very popular venue. And as one of the ladies we spoke to said to me, she's a little bit tired of seeing all the kids going to the hedges and doing whatever they have to do in the hedges. You know, we should be a little bit more civilized for that. And there are no toilets north of Walk Road. No public toilets north of Walk Road. And people need catering for. I'll leave that with you.
Right. Thank you very, very much, Alan.
Okay.
Do you want to take a seat?
No. One is going to the floor.
Oh, yes,
I'll leave you with it.
that's why you want another toilet.
Right. Okay. Do I have speakers, please?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I think what Alan said has got a lot of legs. It would be lovely to have another cafe up there. The problem is staffing it. You know, you can have a plethora of good ideas, but making them work is another thing. So any alterations made, there will be a cost. And I'm not, is that district, that building?
Yeah. Yes.
You've got to go through the district.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
One.
I stopped because you were talking. So, yeah, it's got the legs, but there's a lot of hoops to jump through, quite frankly, and I think there's going to be a lot of expense with it. I wish the thing all the best, but I've got my doubts, serious doubts, on the financial side of it and the staffing side of it. It's all going to be factored into whether it's feasible or not.
Of course. I've got 3 other speakers. Councillor Jones.
Chairman, toilet idea, I fully support that. You're right, Ken, it's district. It's something that we need to, we've got cabinet members here. We should, something we should put to district, and if there's money to be spent and improvements to be made, it's a district issue, I think. So that's the first point. As for the cafe, have they still got a cafe at the leisure centre? Because I thought they closed.
No, this is closed.
So what makes it run a cafe at Halls Road if they can't run one in their own building?
I sense that.
That's the only comment I'd make about that.
Yeah. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, Councillor Jones has pretty much covered what I was going to say. I don't think I have heard the idea of a cafe up there before. It's the first I've heard about it, but I think there's a bit of a underestimation of what the cost implications might be for that. I think changing a changing room into a cafe is quite a substantial cost element.
And it's losing the changing room. isn't it?
Yeah.
But if the centre got this.
Right, okay. Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, council Aldworth sort of lobbed a bomb and then disappeared. It
Yeah.
sounds it's a bit of a back of a bag packet, this idea.
Yeah.
And it's obviously very, very, I agree. If we couldn't make the cafe work at the leisure centre, then it's questionable whether it would work up there as well. And what he was sort of saying was, as I understood it, that some of the equipment that's in the cafe now is
Usually.
going to go
Back.
up there. Now, you know, I can't see SMDC letting those that equipment going, you know, for nothing, to be perfectly honest. So I think it's a laudable idea. However, it's district council land, it's district council building, and I think if we want to, as a town council, to throw the idea up to Staffordshire Moorlands, then I think that's fair enough. We can do. I'm quite happy to do that, but I can certainly see a lot of the pitfalls in the idea, from the idea to actually seeing it happen.
Okay. Councillor Yates.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Councillor Jackson said, I am a little bit slightly bemused that Councillor Holworth has lobbed in a gentle hand grenade and then disappeared, not listened to debate, because obviously, unless the answer is yes and yes, he's going to be thinking, waste of time. But there's obviously a lot of things to consider. I think if it went ahead, it would have to be under license to me. It would have to be under license to Biddle Town Council, the same as the Grange Visitor Centre is, the same as the Buzz Club, the same as the town hall is. And the reason I say that is that for Biddle to have that facility in isolation, when there's a multitude of towns and substantial villages, notwithstanding Leek Cheadle, you've got these similar facilities at Warrington, similar facilities at Cheddleton, I'm sure there's similar facilities at Alton, Long, the Worslow, and the rest, so to speak. If you do it here, then there's obviously going to be a clamour for multiplicity and doing it elsewhere, and that would be a reasonable thing to expect. I think it concerns me about the glib cost that you can open a toilet and everything's okay. As the mayor said earlier, he was balking at the cost of £48 an hour to run a toilet, which £48 a day, which is quite reasonable, really, when you consider it as an hourly rate. I wonder what Park would actually allocate as time at this moment in time for servicing the disabled toilet, how often they do it, to what standard they do it, because obviously it's only used infrequently, and what the additional cost, the additional hours would be to actually run it as a more permanent toilet. But you're going to get a situation potentially where you're talking the cost is £5 for a pee, so to speak, if you excuse me French. And you've got to look at the cost effectiveness of Biddle Town Council taking something like that on. I think with regards to the cafe, again, very laudable, but isn't there a bacon sandwich van which turns up on a Sunday? And surely if it turned up on a Sunday and it was effectively printing gold, it would turn up on a Saturday or on a Friday afternoon or in the school holidays or whatever. And I think running the cafe, unfortunately, in this day and age, needs to be a commercial liability. So it's one thing to facilitate a pitch for a mobile and advertise an available room for somebody to sort of take on as a commercial organisation. I think for the town council to take that on as a liability is, we've seen the situation at the Grange, which is a tourist destination. I think it's difficult to potentially handle that liability. Even though I have to say, that the sentiment is laudable, I think there is other ways of approaching it.
Okay. Just for point of clarification, the butty van is run by a member of the lads and dads.
Respect.
And he doesn't always turn up. In actual fact, when there's a dog show on at the leisure centre, he goes there and just leaves the football pitch. That's for just clarification. Now I've got Councillor Smith wants to come back, Councillor Jones wants to come back, but Councillor Proudlove, Councillor Salt, I'll put you at the end because you are not a member of the committee. So Councillor Proudlove will go first, then Councillor Smith, and then Councillor Jones, and then I'll bring you in if that's all right.
You can put me on your list, please.
Yes, okay.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, Councillor Jones flagged up that yes, his cabinet members from SMDC sat here. And obviously this is an SMDC asset. But what I'm trying to understand is, was Councillor Holdsworth actually asking something of the district council? What is he actually asking of us? I don't know. I couldn't work it out.
He would just,
Yes.
I'll leave it with you. Unquote.
Come on, just let's clear it, because we are being recorded. Please don't say anything derogatory. Okay. Now I'd like to bring in Councillor Smith, please.
Yeah, just to seek further clarification from Councillor Holdsworth as to whether the request for the cafe is due to the leisure centre wanting to get rid of some stuff that they've got lying about. It is because he's had, significant representation that people at the weekends want a cup of tea and a butty or not. And if that's the case, surely if, like you say, butty vans and things have been on before, then maybe there's a case for during the summer months for something to set up for the weekend to sort of satisfy beverage and
Yeah.
have you.
I think that's probably more viable as such. Then the next, Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Personally, Chair, I think the cafe idea is a non-starter. I think if they can't make a cafe pay within their own building, I don't know how they're going to make it fly up there. That's the first thing to say. As for the toilets, I think to me, it seems outrageous that there's no toilet facilities on a match day, because league teams play up there.
Oh.
Kids, pardon?
The changing rooms are open on the match day.
Have they got toilets in them?
Yes.
Sorry, I don't know. I'm not a footballer.
But they're not for the public, that's the problem.
No.
But what about, can spectators go into them?
One meeting, please.
Sorry, I'm just asking the question, Chair.
Yeah, I know.
Can spectators go into those toilets?
There isn't a bouncer on the door.
Oh.
That's not being facetious, but I
Okay, all I'm saying, Chair, is that there ought to be toilet facilities there at least on a match day, and if either those toilets need to be clearly signposted that they are usable, or the disabled toilet needs to be unlocked, or some other arrangement. I think that's quite a reasonable request from Council Holder, that toilet facilities are made available. Kids should not be peeing up there, or anybody else, in the hedges. They shouldn't have to. They should be.
No.
It's a match day, and there's events on there. They should be open. That's all I'm saying. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Salt and then the Mayor, please.
It's got a few points. So, as a parent of a child that does play down Halls Road, that's where he plays his home matches. The changing rooms are open and children can use those toilets and adults. So it'd be nice if Councillor Holdsworth were here to listen to the debate. Because I'd like to ask him whether he's talking about children peeing up the hedges during the football, which that shouldn't be happening because the toilets are quite clearly open and all the teams have got the keys to the toilet so they can go in and they can get, all the netting and all that sort of stuff is stored within there. So the teams know that the toilets are open. Whether Councillor Holdsworth is referring to the fact that people are doing it at 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon when there's no football on at all. So we haven't got that information. So that's been helpful. Again, I think a butty van can go up there on a Saturday afternoon. I think the district council, if they allow it on a Sunday morning, then there's no reason why they shouldn't allow it on a Saturday afternoon. I think that can be something that's very easily fixed. And the third thing I was going to say, well, we're talking about this, and I wasn't sure what Councillor Holdsworth was going to bring to the table, but just to make councils aware, at that end of the town, the car park is no longer locked. I was there and Kevin was there when a conversation was had. The lady from the children's care home which is next door to the playing fields, took on the responsibility of locking and unlocking the Halls Road car park. She inherited it from somebody. Anyway, we were all down there talking about a different issue. Quite a few councillors and officers from Staffordshire Moorlands District Council were there a couple of months ago. And the lady collared one of the officers and said, I don't want to do this job anymore. I don't want to lock and unlock the car park. It was something that I did for a few months, but now I've got residents telling me that it should be shut at this time, and it should be up at this time. I don't want the responsibility anymore. I don't want to do it, and handed the keys over there and then. And the officer from Staffordshire Moorlands District Council said, actually, it's not our policy to lock car parks anymore in any parks or land that we own, unless the community has an express wish to take on that responsibility. And as far as I'm aware, there isn't anybody down at Halls Road with an express wish to every morning and every evening unlock and lock the car park. So that's just for information for councillors. Thank you.
Thank you. That's probably what I was aware of, that the person that originally was doing it became older and more infirm and stopped doing it. And other people may have taken on the responsibility, but how officially sanctioned that was is up for debate.
Well, it's not sanctioned now. It'll be open permanently. So there you go.
Okay. Mr. Mayor?
Oh, right, thank you. Yeah, I'm a little gonna surprise you, I'm a little confused. This building, right, which has got several toilets in it, obviously when it's locked up, nobody can use it. What I'm concerned about is disabled access. If, when the building is closed, is there any, say, a disabled person can access the toilet?
Clarification, there's a separate disabled toilet which is accessible all the time
From outside.
Radar.
with a key.
Radar.
A radar.
Okay,
Fair enough, that answers the question, thank you.
thank you. Councillor Yates, you wanted to come back?
Yes, just really to take this forward to some kind of conclusion. I think there's two actions which we can do here. And one is ascertain what the capital cost would be as a one-off to convert the disabled toilet into a non-radar key accessed toilet, because there would be some works required. And I think they may have to do some reconfiguration, re-engineering inside to make it a little bit more robust, shall we say?
Yes.
And I'll leave it to that. And secondly, what the ongoing revenue cost related to a proposal for opening hours, whether that's weekends only, whether that's through school holidays or whatever, additional to the current associated with managing the disabled toilet. So, for example, if at the moment there's a sort of charge on the district of £25 a day for managing the disabled toilet, if that goes up to £70 a day because of extra equipment and cleaning or whatever, then that gives us a figure of what it'll charge. And finally, with regards to the provision of refreshments, shall we say, I think it's reasonable to go back to Staffordshire Moorlands District Council and actually generate a formal licensed pitch, which we can actually promote and put out to market to see if anybody is interested in taking that on, because that actually advertises to people who've got these facilities to actually come and do a professional job. Now, if that's the case and that can happen and it demonstrates the viability, then we can look at stage 2 further down the road for the capital cost of the alterations to have a permanent structure cap. And I think that is a reasonable conclusion. And those two proposals is what I'd like to put forward.
Okay, do you have a seconder? Councillor Smith. Okay, do I have any further speakers? Councillor Jones, do you want to come in finally?
Yeah, just quickly, Chair.
To wrap this up, please.
I think we should just limit this to match days. I think,
Yeah.
I mean, there are no 7-day-a-week toilets at Leeds, there are no 7-day-week toilets at Churchill, there are no 7-day-week toilets at Otley. It's just on a match day.
Point to clarification, the issues aren't on a match day when the proper formal matches, because as we've said.
I think this is why we need more information, what Councillor Holder's question is.
Have you got his phone number?
No. I mean, you know, my reaction was just throwing back news and we need more information before we can discuss. Well, I don't want to be chilly about it. I do think, there should be proper facilities there when there's a matches on and people are attending, so.
There are.
If there are, then maybe it's just a case of a bit of signposting, I don't know.
Okay, right. All those in favour of the protocol? Any against? Any against?
Two against.
Two against? Three against?
Can we have a proper show of hands?
Please, let's have a proper show of hands.
All four.
Can I ask district council?
Oh, four.
Four.
Yes.
Yeah.
For the motion, Chair.
For the motion,
Motion, please, again, for clarity.
So the motion is, I approach the district council and ask them to consider costs for opening the disabled loos. And maybe some refiguration there, and then the costs for running a cafe on that side, in whatever form that's.
No, there's no cost in the cafe. The proposal is that we go to the council to offer a licensed pitch or a
License.
mobile vendor. So you don't have to do anything on that as a town council.
and watch out for the lads. Thank you. So we've taken a vote, any against? One, two against. Okay, any abstentions? You can't vote, so you're down as, not voting. Okay, thank you. We'll move on, please. Okay. Oh, it's me. Right. On. Running out of time. Requested by me to consider the future use of the bus hub. It does what it says on the tin. Councillor Salt. Have any members of the committee who wish to speak? Councillor Jones first.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't know the details and I may be wrong, but it seems to me that I think this is what the essence of your agenda item is that the bus hub is locked up most of the time, with nobody in it most of the time. In the winter, people are getting very cold and wet sometimes, and they would like to use it. And I think that's not an unreasonable request. And I think, but it obviously would involve a little bit of spend to make people and be able to use it and still not miss the bus. Because the big issue is if you're in there, you can't see the buses coming. So you're going to need a camera or something and a TV screen or a big mirror or something. But I think to have it locked up and unused, when people are standing in the rain is a little bit.
Yeah, I am here to clarify that. A number of members of the public, some are my ward constituents, some are Councillor Yates, not really representations from Biddulph but from those two wards particularly, and people from Brownlees, which is still the West Ward, have said that they feel rather aggrieved to have to stand there when it's -4 outside and a wind chill of another two degrees when the bus hub's shut in the winter. And for one of my elderly ward constituents, it's not good for her, and for a number of her friends who've commented to her particularly. So that's third party stuff. I do understand that previously people have complained that they can't see the buses coming, but I believe that could be rectified with a camera on the outside, with a small TV screen on the inside. But I'm hoping that the chief officer will clarify on that. I've got three speakers: Councillor Smith, Councillor Brownlow, Councillor Yates. Chief officer.
I'll be on up first.
And Councillor Salt. You're not a member of the committee, so I'm going to take Councillor Smith, Proudlove and Yates first, please.
So we've spoke about the bus hub many times over the last few years, including 12 months ago, where both myself and other colleagues have suggested that we looked at the bus hub for detached youth work and that we put a Wi-Fi connection in there. And at that point, we had maybe one detached youth worker. At the moment, we've got a really strong team of detached youth workers. They're doing well. The trends of antisocial behaviour seem to be on the downturn as a result of that. So surely now would be a really good time to revisit what we have discussed 12 months ago and look at, you know, jumping on the fact that we're doing really well with the detached youth work and give them a base to work from and to engage with young people in the town.
That's a proposal, I'll second it.
Let's have some debate, please. Councillor Proudlove.
Thank you, Chair. No, I mean, to be honest, I think Councillor Smith's hit the nail on the head for me. We've, you know, gone around the block during the last few months with regards to antisocial behaviour and trying to address this in the town centre. I think there's a real opportunity there for some joined up working with a range of organisations, and we've got the ideal place in which to look at. So, you know, I think that's something that I'd back wholeheartedly.
Thank you. Councillor Yates.
Yes, I think we've got the opportunity of killing two birds with one stone here. I think during the course of the day, when generally speaking, certainly the 93 buzz runs and the most of the service buses, we could actually open it as a waiting room with the same hours as we open the toilets effectively, you know, we're using the same person to lock and unlock. And that, I don't think that would conflict with the detached youth work, especially considering that at weekends, the buses run far less frequently. So it could be in the daytime, a refuge, which is what it was meant for. I think using a ring camera is more than sufficient to have the connection to sort of look down to see where it's going. So it doesn't have to be particularly expensive to put effectively a CCTV system in there to help the passengers. And I think at the evenings and weekends, it can be used for detached youth work. It doesn't have to have too much change. If it does need any particular equipment for the youth work, then a secure locker of various descriptions actually put within the facility would be fine. And it does give us potentially the scope to do something like they did at Kids Grove Railway Station and have a small refreshment hub, which again could be cupboarded and locked up in the evening if not required. But in the daytime, it would actually double up as where somebody can sit and have a cup of coffee while they're waiting for a bus, or collect a cup of coffee if they want to walk around, because since Sainsbury's traffic's closed, we have lost that pick up and go facility. So we have got the scope to actually do something positive which suits multi-generational use. And I'd like to propose that as a working motion.
Okay, thank you. I've got the mayor, and then I've got Councillor Jones, and then I've got Councillor Lawton.
Me?
Sorry, Councillor Jackson, I've missed you out. Do you want to go first?
Still not me.
You're not part of the committee. I need to get committee members first.
Okay, right, yeah. I think the glaring fault in the argument about people being cold and not being able to use the bus hub is, how do they get to the bus hub from wherever they live? It's exactly the same thing. And some places there's not even a shelter where people are waiting for buses. However, I do think that the bus hub should be used. I think the transport system in and around the city needs a massive upgrade, where electronically bus times come up on a screen at bus shelters when buses are coming. They've got it in other parts of the country, so that would be one. The idea of a camera in, yeah. But going right back, and I don't know if you can remember, Councillor Hart, when we were doing the regen stuff, that seemed to appear from nowhere on anything. It came one day to a meeting that this bus hub was going to go there, and it was, you know, really quite late in the day when the Sainsbury's building was going on, and there was no real thought put in to the design of it, from where I can stand anyway, and the design of it and what it could be used for, because it is stupid to have a bus hub when you cannot see which way the bus, you can't see the buses coming up. It's, you know, a fundamental flaw, if you like. So I agree that we need to try and get a bit more use out of that, and I think it can be used as a bus hub. But people can get a coffee in Foster's and take walk around with it as well, in Sainsbury's, for Costa Coffee.
Yeah, coffee is rubbish.
Okay, let's,
Yeah, but yeah, so I'm quite happy to support the motion that's been put forward, Chair.
okay. Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, thank you. I've been listening to the various comments and my mind started to go back about 70 or 80 years ago. Oh my God. When
every year.
I know
please.
what happened. There would be a police officer. Everybody knew in the community that at a certain time, a police officer would be there. So if you wanted to speak to him, any queries, you could go there. So surely we could put that in the bus stop, where at a certain time, one of our PCSOs would be there for an hour. The members of the public would know all about this and they could go and see him or her. I think that would be a useful person.
Suggestion we can make, I think. Councillor Lawton and then Councillor Jones.
Thank you. I'd like to refer to Councillor Jackson's recent contribution and agree fully with him, but to stress the fact that in places, certain parts of the city area or North Staffordshire area, there is displays with at least partial real-time bus information. There's Hamley bus station, there's Newcastle bus station. There are the bus shelters throughout the hospital complex. All those have got real-time information. And I believe there's an installation at Rudyard, would you believe? Not sure whether it's real-time or theoretical. From the bus up to
Theoretical. What's does?
But to be realistic for its purpose of warning passengers of the impending arrival, it needs to be real-time, not theoretical. But I do think that that's an area that should be pursued very actively, rather than just settle for an outside camera. And I would suggest that our county representative will be the person to help represent us in forwarding that investigation.
Right, I've got two for the speakers, Councillor Jones and Councillor Smith. Sorry, Councillor Jones and Councillor Salt.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes.
I'm just reading through the standing orders and there's nowhere in the standing orders does it say that a person that's not on the committee has to wait till last to speak, just for your information.
Oh, sorry, I had a thing from district to say that that was the case, but
Might be a district, but it's certainly not on council, Chair.
okay. Right, Councillor Jones and then Councillor Salt.
Yeah, I'll be very quick, Chair. As I said, I just don't want to see it shut and doing nothing. I think Councillor Yates' idea of using it as a bus shelter during the day and something else later on. As I said at the time, I would second it. If that's a proposal, which he said it was, I would second it and I need to move to the vote. Let's go doing it. Obviously, after Councillor Salt's.
Salt.
I'll withdraw because everything's been said, Chair, but just for point of information, I just found that I had my hand up first to speak and I've waited for about 10 speakers very patiently.
Being very patient.
It's out of order according to the standing orders. Thank you.
Yeah, so conflicting between town and district. All those in favour, Councillor Yates, you put that as a proposal of dual use.
Yes.
Well, the chief officer will investigate that.
Dual use.
Dual use,
That's a huge surely.
use during the day.
Just a quick point, just to clarify.
One thing, please, I would wish you would.
To open and close with the same hours as we open and close the public toilet, so that people who are waiting for the bus have got somewhere to shelter. And then outside of those hours, to use it as a facility to accommodate a detached youth worker. It allows us to evolve the use of the space to produce storage and potentially to have an internal refreshment zone, cafe zone, because obviously there's seats and people are waiting for a bus. And I think to facilitate it as a bus waiting room, you need to investigate a simple but effective system, CCTV system, like a ring type system, which are relatively cost effective, easy to install and very, very reliable and HD. So it does allow that period of evolution, but it does get it straight away into use.
Thank you. Councillor Jones, are you happy with that?
Yes, we need to suspend standing orders.
Yes, I think we need.
No, because this meeting hasn't gone on for 2
This meeting has not gone on for 2.5 hours.
We've got a 9 o'clock.
It's 2.5 hours per meeting.
Per meeting.
Oh,
Great, though. Let's see how fast we can do this.
Carry on.
that bloody-
Still carry on.
Got there.
Okay, right, okay,
Please excuse me,
You don't want any cleaning?
otherwise I should put some.
Mine's just,
So we don't want any cleaning or maintenance
mine's
activities.
just Sainsbury's. Well,
cleaning and maintenance activities, councillor Yates.
Oh, I would think we need we would obviously need something costing in. Yeah,
All of this out of earmarked reserves.
well, the thing is, it's a proposal which we sort of investigated to come back to look at, to look at costs to take it forward. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, we could certainly start it with the Sharp Prosperity Fund grant, I'm sure, because that's certainly a revenue-based town centre enhancement. I think that is an absolute definite. So I think it gives us the opportunity to look for funding to get something secured. But otherwise, what other option is there other than to leave something glaringly locked up with people banging hands and figures on the outside?
Chair,
Yeah.
yeah, I've got to,
It's up and going.
through Sarah, do we not have a budget for children and young people working group that we could tap into? We haven't got a budget for that.
So I'm going to go to the vote, please. All those in favour of the proposal that's been outlined? Any against? Seems unanimous. Okay. Are we happy with that now? I'm rather glad I brought that because we have a positive possible conclusion. Nipersley, Highways Group update meeting. What's happened?
Thank you, Chair. So, for those of you who weren't familiar with this, Councillor Flunder, through his DHP last year, funded the Town Council to complete a questionnaire of residents within the Nipersley area with regard to parking issues and other highways issues. There were some varied responses and an action plan was developed from the back of that. For a period of time then, the group didn't meet. Councillor Flunder asked whether we would bring that group back together just to try and draw a line into some of those actions. And the group met again on the 17th of July. And so there were a number of things that were complete. So we, as a town council, have been paid for the provision, the publication, I suppose, of a small leaflet that you'd see to kind of provide some guidance and some warnings to representatives of the school communities. So that will be hopefully delivered to households, not households, to schools for them to do something with next week. Well, hopefully at the end of this week if we can. I gather that the issue with regards to Conway Road Green is moving forward, and the group agreed to meet again to further finalise, if such thing was possible, some further activities on the 25th of this month. So that's gone out with your meeting schedule for September, and hopefully we can start to draw a line into some of that work.
Right, okay, any comments? Councillor Redfern, Councillor Salt.
Councillor Salt.
Very kind.
Go on, fire away.
Thank you. Are officers still being paid for their time on this, given that it's a county council initiative? Are we still receiving funding from Councillor Flunder's DHP for this or not?
I understand that we can claim that if we want to. I understand that we can claim that if we want to.
Okay,
Right, too.
we should.
Councillor Redfern.
Yeah, it's a very curious group really, because this all started from something very, very simple and seemed to become something very complicated, but it was never. This all started from the fact that some years ago, the district council, using SRB money, put some wooden posts around three sides of Conway Road to protect the green and to stop people parking their vehicles on there, which it was felt at the time was a safety issue, which it still is now. those just simply rotted away over time. The district council came along and said, well, they never really existed in the first place, or one of the officers did, which obviously was then proven to be incorrect by use of photographs that were taken at the time when they were installed. And then all of a sudden we started doing this big survey about everywhere and everything, and just all seemed to me anyway to get out of the way. I think it is a useful group. I think there are people on there who have legitimate concerns, particularly people in some of the cul-de-sacs off the main road who do have real issues when it comes to parking, particularly when events are taking place, etc. They do have issues, I certainly think, when it comes to getting in and out of their properties during certain times of the day. So I think it does have a use. But as I say, my major concern was simply to get some wooden bollocks replaced. They were wood, and I hope they would be wood again, really, rather than plastic, but plastic. So it's just one of these things that, a bit like a mushroom, it seemed to grow exponentially at the top for some reason.
Thank you very much, councillor Redfern. Councillor Yates.
Yes, two things. I think the posts are on the way back. We have got that tacit acceptance now at staff small district council that they were there, so they're going to go back. Secondly, thinking about the cul-de-sac places like Cosford, I think the solution is something which they use in a lot of towns where they have a lot of tourists. If you go to places like Bakewell, Matlock, and that is put the residents only restriction on them, which is just 2 posts and 2 signs and a traffic order. Unfortunately, something as small as that still costs £7,000, £8,000 plus. But that should, with enforcement, solve the problem and negate the fact of the yellow lines all over the place and whatever. And you do see a lot of that. I mean, you go to any tourist place and you see them. Looks like there's a point of clarification going in here, but
One point of clarification, councillor.
Just because I tried to do the same thing on John Street, which is what got me into being a councillor, and it's not as simple as that, because 75% of the residents have to agree to pay to
Correct, they do.
residents parking scheme.
no, it wouldn't be a residence parking scheme. It'd be a traffic order to
Right.
say that you haven't got access to the road unless you actually live there. If you go to any of the tourists, go to Bakewell.
Yeah.
And you're trying to avoid a car park and you think, oh, there's a nice little estate road there, I'll turn in. There's signs saying access only residents. It's not a residence permit scheme. It's a traffic parking restriction. It's quite different.
Yes.
For
Can we have a one on John Street as well, then, please?
no, because it's a through road.
Can we just, it's an update. Let's take it as an update and, all right, okay.
That's something which we should potentially pursue.
Yeah, okay, right. I'm going to move on then, please. Number 25, grant has been received from the district council towards Langton's activity update, please.
We've received £400 for this year and backdated £400 for last year for Langton's activities. Don't know why, but I'm not going to say no. So they
Neither am I.
Labour and charge.
Yes, because we recognise the importance of the length.
Oh, yes, I know. Move on.
Clarification, we do recognise the importance of Lensman service and are promoting its use throughout the district.
Yes, of course. Right. I'm going to move on to 27, jobs for the linksman. Go on.
Stands quick.
Spend the money quick.
Hands down, close, footpath over the railway bridge, the hedge, which traditionally is cut back this time of year, would appreciate it being cut back.
Yeah. Further ones for the linksman, please. No? Nothing else? Okay. Move on.
Sorry,
Councillor Redfern?
a tree was brought to my attention earlier. Was that something that the Lensman might be able to do, or is it because it's on private?
Private, unfortunately. Right, and we're going to move on to confidential items. Item 28, land opportunities within the town standing order item. We have no members of the public here, so we're going to actually stop the recording as of this particular